Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to The Way of Love. I by Swami Sarvapriyananda. So I don't know why there's a dash there. The Way of Love, I. But anyway, this is the closest thing I think I could find to Bhakti Yoga that Swami has that I haven't reacted to. And I do believe this is Bhakti to a degree. I know I am killing that word because I'm not pronouncing it right, probably. But anyway, let's go and give this a shot. Yes, CC's on.
Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmasvarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme tayo shritva pranamami muhurmuhu Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukhaswarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we have a special subject. It's called the way of love. In fact, today and the next Sunday I'm going to speak on this theme on bhakti, on the way of love. And you might think that's different. Doesn't sound like you. I have actually spoken earlier about the love of God, and you'll say, Swami, what's different? Because you have spoken about this earlier. If you remember, I have said that the love of God is a very great help in the path of knowledge. When you're trying to discover the true self, it's very helpful to have a devotional attitude to God. But today, the love I'm going to speak about is not as a support to jnana, not as something which is second fiddle to jnana, to the path of knowledge. Devotion is helpful in karma. When you do your duty in life, if you do it out of love, that if you do it as a worship of God, that's the attitude in which we do karma yoga. So bhakti is also a part of karma yoga. When you do work, you do it with love of God.
So mind you, I want to get into Jnana Yoga as well, because that'll be the other part of this trilogy, or whatever you want to call it. In Raja Yoga, being the meditation, something that's been separated from Chinmayananda through his BMI explanation, and also with Osho, by the way, talks about the separation of your actions, your body, your thoughts, and your emotions, which is the BMI, but also how I associate karma, bhakti, and jnana. So the thing about me about devotion to God is not, again, I guess it's so weird because in the Western world, God is duality. And I know in Advaita Vedanta, it's non-duality. As a matter of fact, you are God. Although there's nothing wrong with seeing a being that's not you as God. It's part of the path. But ultimate reality is you are God. You are Brahman. So by devoting yourself to God, you are, in a sense, devoting yourself to yourself. I much prefer that saying than devoting yourself to God. So and that's the one thing I wanna kind of straighten out, I guess. I don't know what the right word for it is. It's the fact that anytime it says devote yourself to God, I do think of it a little bit in the Western sense, because that's how it's been when I've been growing up. Throughout my life, it's always been duality, God separate. But I do have to try to understand it from Advaita Vedanta set, which is the fact that it's non-duality, that you are God, which that is what I can accept. I refuse or don't like to accept the duality version of that, which is God is something separate. So basically, when you are devoting yourself to God, you're devoting yourself to yourself. So that 100%. Whatever you do for yourself or for someone else, be devoted to it. Give it 110%, as they say, and give it all you got. Hope for the best, but expect the worst.
But today I'm not going to speak about bhakti or love as a support to karma yoga, as something that is second fiddle to karma. No. Today we are going to speak about love the path of love, bhakti yoga, as pure bhakti, as prema, independent in and of itself. You see, the whole thing about spiritual life is the different paths look at it in different ways. In the path of knowledge, the problem is that we are ignorant of our nature as God. And so the solution to ignorance is always knowledge.
And the one thing I wanna find out about jnana is what knowledge exactly? Scientific knowledge, or is it something like Sadhguru does, where he grabs an object and then really looks at it really well and observes it, really looking at it, like he talks about whenever he was a child, and he'd just grab a leaf and he'd just sit there and look at it for hours on end. Like, what exactly is that knowledge? I have a base understanding of a lot of these. I have a great understanding of karma now, but I don't know if it's everything. I just have a greater understanding of it. Bhakti is this next one. If there's one from each guru, I will react to it because I want to understand it a little bit deeper. And jnana, I've noticed, is about knowledge, but what knowledge exactly? Book knowledge, scientific knowledge, wisdom in terms of experiences.
So if you are ignorant of our nature as Brahman, the solution should be knowledge. In the path of meditation, Raja Yoga, they will say the problem is the restlessness of the mind. It's not ignorance, it's restlessness of the mind. So the solution to restlessness of the mind is meditation, dhyana. So vikshepa is the problem and dhyana is the solution. Meditation is the solution. But in the path of love, they say the problem is not that we are ignorant, not that we have a restless mind. Oh no. Let your mind be restless for God. Good enough. So in the path of love, the problem is not that we are ignorant, we have ignorance about our true nature, or that our mind is restless. No. The problem is we do not have love for God. We do not have shraddha, faith in God. We do not surrender to the Lord. That is the problem in the path of love. So today, and again next week, we shall speak about love and only love. The question is why? The answer to the question why is the same in all paths. Because there is suffering in life. Because there is lack of satisfaction in life. Therefore, we seek a spiritual solution. But that's true of the path of knowledge. That's true of the path of meditation. That's true of every path. Misery in the world, and we try to get true happiness, lasting happiness and peace through spirituality. But what's special about the path of love? The path of love is this. In all paths, because of suffering, we look for a way out of suffering, true peace and happiness through spirituality. But and that's true of bhakti also. But what's special about bhakti is that God loves bhakti. More than the one who's practicing the way of knowledge, more than the one who's practicing the way of meditation or any other way, God loves you in turn. The devotee loves God and God loves the devotee in turn. There is a speciality about the path of bhakti. Lord loves bhakti. Sri Ramakrishna used to give a very homely example. When you feed the cow in the cow shed with hay, if you mix it with a little bit of oil cake or something, something tasty, the cow munches it up. So all our spiritual practices, if it is mixed with love, the Lord takes it, accepts it immediately. The Lord loves that. That's the speciality of bhakti. You see, in the path of knowledge, there is this big question about qualifications. If you enter the path of knowledge, they will say, Sadhan Chatushtaya Sampanna Pramata Adhikari, which is as difficult as it sounds, which means the person with fourfold qualifications is qualified for Vedanta. What are the fourfold qualifications? One, that the discrimination between the real and the unreal, Viveka, Vairagya, the dispassion for the unreal, and intense desire to reach the real. And the sixfold treasures, calmness of the mind, control of the sense organs, withdrawal from the world, a settledness, samadhana, settledness inside, in Brahman, and then fortitude, spiritual fortitude, putting up with all the difficulties in the world in the pursuit of spiritual knowledge, deep faith in the teachings of the Vedanta, of the Guru, and so on. And mumukshutvam, intense desire to be free. Now, how many of us have got those things? How many of us have got those qualifications? But in bhakti, what is the qualification?
Love.
Nothing. Nothing. Anybody can start. In the path of bhakti, anybody can enter the path of bhakti, anybody can start.
I know a lot of gurus and swamis say bhakti is the easiest one, and yeah, I can see why. And knowledge, all that, oh my gosh. That's the path that I say I would pick, but, well, I'll say this. I guess this is the thing I like about Hinduism. Now, perhaps, I don't know if it's specifically Advaita Vedanta or just Hinduism, but it's the sheer fact of what Lakhani says. There are many paths to moksha, or hopefully there's many paths to moksha, or liberation, or awareness, or being one with God, or being if I like what I like, awareness, and hopefully, in my opinion, will be correct, at least for me, is to have a combination of each one. It's not necessarily that you have to have 100% in bhakti or 100% in jnana or anything like that. It's always a combination to find your own spiritual path. And I've kind of been shaping it up in a sense, but not really knowing it. But now I have to, which is what I want to do, is kind of write it down. It's probably it's probably not going to be straightforward, but generalized path, because I just don't know if I can really refine it. But I do want to write it down. I want to see how what kind of path I'm taking. So I'm going to write it down, and hopefully I can create a video about it and let me know what you guys think about it. And again, this is a path that I'm hoping to follow. I'm hoping it's the right one. And obviously I don't know, and I don't know if it's going to work for anyone, but yeah.
The difference is like this. Knowledge, jnana, is like a king. You need to decorate your house. You need to clean up, before you invite the king to your house. You need to clean up the house. You need to decorate it nicely and get probably order a new sofa set or something, because the king is coming. And perfume and spray and dress up nicely. Everything should be perfect before the king will even deign to come in. And when the king comes in there, the king doesn't do anything, just goes and sits down dryly, because this is the king. He goes down and sits down on the throne, couch potato. So, but on the other hand, bhakti, the word bhakti, the Sanskrit word, is feminine. So it's compared to a humble maidservant, who doesn't want any preparation. She just says, let me into your house, let me into your heart. That's all I want. And once you let her in, bhakti, what she does is, she comes and cleans up your house. You don't have to do anything. She cleans it up. Bhakti brings in its train all the good qualities, all the virtues. So love of God comes and cleans up your house, decorates your house. So,
real quick, when it says feminine, is it like the language Spanish or French, where there is feminine, masculine words, or is he merely saying that it's like a very welcoming type word? Bhakti being very like warm and cozy and comforting, as opposed to it being like a feminine word versus a masculine word. I never really heard that from I'm guessing Sanskrit, or maybe the language. I've not heard of being a masculine and feminine language. I know French and Spanish are masculine and feminine, but that's about it. So I'm just wondering, what does he mean by feminine? Bhakti being feminine. Again, is it just like warm and welcoming, or is there actually words that are feminine words and words that are masculine words?
So that is the advantage of bhakti. Anybody is qualified to love God. You see, there is this problem, in the path of knowledge. Suppose a person who is very knowledgeable in the Vedanta, but still has a hot temper, angry. Now, who wants a jnani who is angry, grumbling all the time and complaining all the time? Who wants a jnani, a person of knowledge, who is envious or critical of others? Who wants a jnani who has got so many problems in life? A jnani who is crying, In Hindi they said, "Rote bhi jnani kisko pasand hai?" Who loves a jnani who has got suffering in the world? Now, in the path of knowledge, there is an excuse, there is a cop-out. They will say, yes, it's at the level of the body and mind. It's at the level of the mind that these problems are there, but I am the witness self. Yes, sometimes there may be anger in my mind, sometimes there may be jealousy in my mind, sometimes there may be greed in my mind, but it is because of past conditioning. But I am the witness self. I know this, I have realized it. Not a very attractive thing.
I will agree with that. Like, me personally, if I were to form my own way, it would be, once you come to realization, you have to have control over the three things: karma, bhakti, the BMI, intellect, emotions, and your body, your actions, physical actions. Your physical actions, body, mind being your emotions, and intellect being your knowledge, your intellect. You definitely you cannot let your body and your emotions run rampant just because you've considered yourself to be enlightened. No, you're not enlightened, in my opinion, which it could be wrong, but in my opinion, if you still go crazy, you rage and you just complain, you're definitely, that's not an enlightened person, in my opinion. But I don't know, I could be wrong. Let me know. Is there an enlightened person out there who rages? I guess they could be very passionate. But it's hard. It's very difficult for me to consider someone enlightened if they just let their bodies and mind go out of control.
From a distance, you would like, in the Hindi they say "dur se pranam." You bow down from a distance. We don't want that kind of. Nobody is attracted to that. Why is this problem there? In the path of knowledge, you see, if someone enters the path of knowledge without the requisite qualifications, what happens is, after some time we cultivate this, one begins to get a kind of understanding, a kind of insight into our real nature. But our nature, our mind, our subconscious mind has not been purified. It has not yet changed. So it's still the same. So the result will be a lot of understanding about Vedanta, maybe. Really, some genuine understanding about Vedanta may be there. But in day-to-day life, the person is just the same. There's no difference. Whereas what bhakti does is different. You see, the difference is this. The problem is that the desires of the heart, desires which pull us to the world, they are of the nature of I want. Desire is always of the nature of I want. Now the problem is usually the I want is connected to the world. So it's of the nature of I want the world. I want the world. And if you know a lot of Vedanta, if you know that I am Brahman and all that, immediately at the beginning at least, it will not make a difference to that I want the world. I want the world will continue as it is. So you will have this peculiar situation of a jnani who may lose his temper, who may be greedy, who may be critical, who may be irritable, who may be still in some sense worldly. What a peculiar situation, at least at the beginning. Whereas bhakti, look at the nature of bhakti. What's the nature of bhakti? Bhakti means love. So nature of love is I want. Desire of the world is of the nature of I want. And the nature of love is also I want. The difference is this. I want the world is replaced with God. I love things of the world, that I love remains the same. That things of the world are replaced with God. Bhakti does that. Bhakti works at the level of the heart. Love works at the level of the heart. Love works at the heart. Knowledge works in the intellect. Knowledge is good for removing ignorance in the intellect. But love of God is good for removing the passions and the base desires which flow towards the world, the same things are turned towards God. Once somebody asked Sri Ramakrishna, how do I overcome lust? And Sri Ramakrishna said, why would you want to overcome lust? Turn it towards God. Turn it towards God. It's the same power which flows towards the world, it is channeled towards God. That is the power of bhakti. Bhakti, therefore, brings qualifications for spiritual life in its own wake. That's why they say, in the path of knowledge also they say, the teachers will always recommend that a good deal of bhakti is very good for a person walking on the path of knowledge also. So love of God brings with itself, you see, discrimination, you don't have to do that. Brahman is real, world is unreal. You have to, with a pinched face thinking, oh, Brahman is real and this is unreal. Don't have to do that. Once the love of God is there, automatically you flow towards God and turn away from worldliness. Love will take you there. The discrimination comes by itself. Dispassion, oh, I must reject the world. You see, the problem with dispassion is this. The problem with trying to be detached from the world is this. Inside there is a desire. And again, also there is this practice of trying to give up the desire. So the result becomes, I want, this is one side, and I don't want. And then you get a conflict. Whereas bhakti resolves it so beautifully, I want God. It flows that way. So automatically, this passion for the world is taken for granted. It just comes by itself. It's very natural. This passion for the world comes by itself. Bhakti. Vairagya, the disciplines, calmness of the mind, control of the senses, automatic in love of God. When we have love of God, when you love somebody, see, the mind automatically settles down on what you love, the person you love, the thing you love. The mind naturally settles down there. Control of the senses. All the senses are now engaged towards the service of the Lord. You don't have to physically, with a lot of discipline, try to control your life. Automatically, in a very smooth way, it flows towards God. So all the qualifications required in the path of knowledge come of themselves to the person who loves God. How do you love God? And the question is, how do you do that? It is easy to eat food, but not so easy to become hungry. If somebody says, eat it, you say, okay, I can eat it. But somebody says, be hungry. Now, that's not really under our control. So love God is a bit like that. It's like trying to tell a person, be hungry. Now, how do I love God? Suppose there is no love of God in my heart. Then how do I love God? It's actually quite simple. We have the power to love. All of us, we have the power to love. We love so many things in the world. We have affection for desire. Desire is another form of love. It's just we want so many things in the world. Now, the teachers of bhakti, the teachers of the love of God tell us, very simple. You have a list of things which you consider to be nice, to be your own. My father, my mother, my husband, my wife, my child, my friend, and all the things which you like and which you want to be related to. In that list alone, just add God to it. One more. In Hindi they say mamata, mineness. Who is mine? In that mine, list of mine, add one more thing, my God. That's the beginning of love of God. Just like that you feel, my child, also feel my God. Saint Teresa of Avila. There's a beautiful thing, she would always call herself Teresa of Jesus. So there's this beautiful story of a vision she had of a man in a white robe, and obviously Jesus Christ with a beard and everything, and glowing figure appearing before her. Before she could say anything, that vision, that apparition said to her, "Who are you?" And she said, as she always did, she blurted out, "I'm Teresa of Jesus. Who are you?" And that vision said, "I'm Jesus of Teresa." You see how touching that is. The moment you add God, my God, and God also says, my love, you are my own child. So that's the beginning of bhakti. You add it to that.
I do wonder, when he's explaining, like the way he's explaining it here, I'm always seeing it as duality. Though it's like, well, there's you, and then there's God, and therefore you must love God, as though God is separate from you. And I'm wondering. I know you teach Advaita Vedanta, but how does that? It's kind of weird to teach duality and then non-duality. I know a lot of people explained in the comments a long time ago that you usually have to go with duality first to explain how non-duality works. But then I guess in a non-duality explanation, how would he explain that? And I think he has pointed out a few times in this speech of his, but it is kind of he touched up on it a little bit. It says when you realize you're the awareness consciousness, when you realize that you're God, but he never really continued continue that path. He would touch up on it and then go to the duality portion, because I guess it is much easier in terms of bhakti probably to do a duality explanation as opposed to a non-duality, because then non-duality may seem selfish, I guess, because obviously if you are in Advaita Vedanta, you are God, so to love yourself, it's like selfish. Do things for yourself, worship yourself, do everything for yourself. But then at the same time, you in Advaita Vedanta, everyone is God, everyone is you, therefore you're doing it for everyone as well. So that's a good way to kind of knock off that selfishness from it. Again, this is mostly coming from probably a Western's perspective, that or actually just people who don't, I guess, quite understand what Advaita Vedanta is, and to understand that everyone is God, everyone is you. Because when you just think of yourself and you don't add the context that you are everyone, it's very difficult to understand, and you start to think of selfishness because you're doing things for yourself. When you do things for other people, you're also seeing that as yourself, which is a perspective that's not very common in Western world, I'm sure, or just in worlds who don't know non-duality.
There's a funny thing they say in India. It's called, there's a Sanskrit term for it, Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyaya. What happens if you add God to your life? Just, you don't have to give up anything at all in the world. Just add it to the list. What happens? So there are these wandering beggars in India. There are holy men, holy beggars who wander around in India. They'll come and ask for something at your house. Now there's a funny story about them. That if such a holy man comes to your house and says, I don't need anything, just give me a corner in your big house, give me a corner in your house. I just need that little corner.
I remember
now,
the story.
You're forewarned. If you do give a corner, you know what will happen next? That person will say, just, I need a little more space to stretch out my legs. So stretching out the legs. That's what's called Bhikshu Pada Prasarananaya, the holy beggar stretching out his legs. So what happens is, next he will say, I have this little image of Krishna. It has to be worshipped. Of course, not in the corner where I stay. I need another corner. So another corner, immediately the image is installed. And of course, I need the flowers from your garden for the worship of the Lord. And the Lord has to be given food, offered food. So in your kitchen, I will do the cooking, but not everywhere. One spot in your kitchen must be reserved for the cooking for the Lord. And slowly, before you know it, the holy beggar and his little Lord have taken over your life. Now it's a blessing. That's what bhakti does. If you allow God into your life, like the camel putting its nose in the tent, the proverbial story, so slowly it spreads over your life. And it is so sweet, so charming. It slowly engrosses your time, your energy, your hours of life. Everything becomes, your thoughts, your feelings become centered around God. Bhikshu Pada Prasarana Nyaya. It's a very, very nice way of putting it. The holy beggar stretching his legs. Your life gets covered by it. How you get love of God? See, they say, here's one thing. There are so many secrets of love. Here is one. One is when we have intensely sublime feelings. Intense feelings of, you're singing Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, you sing and dance, or you listen to a very uplifting work of music, may not be spiritual music. You see something wonderful, sublime in nature, a beautiful sunset, maybe in the Central Park here. Heart is uplifted when deep uplifting emotions are there in your heart. They say the language used is the heart melts for a while. Now the secret is this: when the heart melts for a while, it may be in great joy, it may be in sorrow, it may be in sorrow also. The heart melts for a while. At that point, whatever you stamp into it will remain deeply engraved in it. When the copper melts, that's when they put the engraving, they stamp it, the mold is put at that time, so it takes that shape. In the moments of intense emotion, when there are tears in your eyes, for whatever reason, if you stamp the name of the Lord, the form of the Lord, my Krishna, my Rama, my Gopala, I am thine, thou art mine. In that moment of intense emotion, it will go deep into your heart. You see what I mean? When the heart melts in emotion, at that point, stamp the name of the Lord, stamp the form of the Lord. If you have a mantra, stamp the mantra of the Lord in your heart at that point. It will stay. It will take root, and do it as often as you can. You will see very soon. You say, I have no real love of God. I don't have bhakti. How to get bhakti? Very soon you will have a genuine, undeniable love of God in your heart. You'll get it.
I'm wondering. I was thinking about that. I get what he's saying. What is it called? I think it's very possible for a lot of people to get that because there's. It's kind of like with music. Personal experience is, and I'm sure a lot of people get this, where you start hearing. It's nostalgia actually. When you start hearing old music and you start associating that music with like a certain event in your life, because whatever the reason may be, it's something like like the music. If you first heard that music, oh man, this is really good. And then forever in your memory, when that music plays, you'll remember the time that you first heard it. I remember Barbie Girl by I forgot what the Aqua. Yeah, it's Aqua. I was in a football stadium, waiting for practice, and yeah, I remember hearing that. It's like that's my jam. It's weird, but I like the music. Still do, probably. Yeah, probably. Not ashamed to admit that. But yeah, there is kind of the same thing with this when you have this deep emotion and you associate that with God. Next time you have that deep emotion, you'll have that association mixed with it. Kind of like how when you hear a certain music, you remember a certain event. Whatever you were doing at that time, if it's strong enough, you'll associate the music and the event. Same thing with the emotion and the devotion. Your emotion with your devotion to your God. It can become intertwined, and anytime you get emotional with stuff, you start getting that devotion feeling. I'm sure. I'm not, again, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it can be something very similar. But yeah, so I get, and plus I can see that with people. I just don't know if I can do that. I'm a little too logical. I always follow the two rules that I keep saying so far is, which is which I can't even remember my own two rules, but just to understand and yeah, well, for one thing is to understand the problem or whatever it may be, and to see what you can do about it. So it doesn't get me emotional. I try to understand it, and then what I can do to fix it or not fix it. If I can fix it, then I either choose to or not to. But if I can't fix it, then again, there's no point in me getting emotional for something that I can't do anything about, or if I choose not to do anything about it. Or if it's a problem and I can fix it, then I can fix it. No point in getting emotional again. Obviously, there are certain situations like maybe not issues where you get emotional, but like people you care about. That's a completely different story. Well, anyways, I'm going to cut this a little bit short. It's going to be part one, and the way of love. I did not think, I thought this was going to be bhakti. I didn't think he was going to directly say it was bhakti, but I'm glad I picked correctly. So anyways, this is part 1. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.